Good morning, students. Today we'll be starting with the topic of physiology of liver, the learning objectives being to study the structure and the functions of the liver. The liver function test will be taken up by the Department of Biochemistry. So let's start. Now, coming to the functional anatomy of the liver, we know that liver is the largest organ. In adult, it weighs approximately 1500 grams. This liver is located in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen, and I say that it is appropriately or strategically located. Why? Because it is located between the splanchnic circulation and the systemic circulation. So the blood which is coming from the splanchnic circulation is rich in nutrients. Pancreas, spleen, gut, the blood that is coming will go to the liver. The nutrients will be metabolized in the liver and then released into the systemic circulation. Another advantage of liver being in this position is that any toxins that have entered into the gut or the splanchnic circulation will be first detoxified in the liver and then released into the systemic circulation. Liver is receiving two types of blood flow or the dual blood flow, one from the hepatic artery and another from the portal vein. So the blood from hepatic artery contributes 20 to 30% and it is coming from the heart. And since it is coming from the heart, this type of blood is rich in oxygen. The other is the portal vein, which is from the receiving blood from the splanchnic circulation, and since it is coming from there, it will be rich in nutrients. As we can see in this slide, the liver has two lobes, the right one which is the larger lobe and the left one which is a smaller lobe. Beside this, it also have accessory lobes, the caudate lobe and the quadrate lobe. But we are concerned more with the functional unit of the liver, and that is hepatic lobule, which is present in 1 million in one liver. Okay, so when we come to a closer look of this hepatic lobule, what you see here is a structure of hepatic lobule which resembles a hexagon. Hexagon has these 6 sides. So at the corners of all these 6 sides, we have a presence of this structure which are known by the name of portal triad. This is a triad which has a 3 structures: the branch of hepatic artery, the branch of portal vein, and the branch of bile duct. Initially, it was thought to be a portal triad with these 3 structures, but now we know that it has also 4th structure to it, and that is lymphatic channel. So it is not triad, but it is tetrad now. Now the blood coming from the hepatic arteriole and the portal venule is moving inside the cell, inside the hepatic lobule, by using these tunnel-like structure which are porous in nature, and it is reaching from the periphery towards the center of the hepatic lobule and draining into this. So the tunnel-like structure which are present here are known by the name of sinusoids. They are modified capillary systems and are very porous in nature, so that it allows the diffusion of the substances, nutrients, oxygen through these channels into the surrounding cells. The sinusoids empty into this structure which is receiving the blood from hepatic artery and the portal vein. It is central vein. This central vein will open up into the hepatic vein. Hepatic vein will contribute toward the inferior vena cava, and inferior vena cava we know will open into the right atrium. And this channel is very important because whenever there is right heart failure, there are back pressure changes affecting liver. So how will it affect the liver? The increase in the blood volume or the right heart failure will result in back pressure changes in inferior vena cava. It will be unable to drain into the right atrium. The back pressure changes will affect the hepatic vein, leading to congestion of the blood in central vein, and this congested blood in the central vein will lead to the decrease in the functioning of the hepatocytes, because it will be causing the congestion of the blood in these sinusoids, and the back pressure changes will affect the liver parenchyma cells. The cells, as you can see, are one layered, one cell thickness or two cell thickness, and these cells are known by the name of hepatocytes. These comprises approximately 60% of the cell. These cells are just like any other cells of the body. They take up the oxygen and the nutrients and release the excretory products. Beside this, one of the most important function of these hepatocytes is detoxification of the chemicals and substances which are exclusive to the hepatocytes. Now coming to this diagram, this is a detailed structure of the hepatic lobule. Here we see different types of cells: hepatocytes, the liver parenchymal cells, approximately 60%, the Kupffer cells which are present lining the sinusoidal lumen. Then we have the stellate cell which is present in the perisinusoidal space, and then we have the endothelial cells which are lining the sinusoidal lumen, and they are fenestrated in nature. The details will be studied in the next slide. So when we see this hepatic lobule, we see that there is a presence of a portal triad which is present toward the periphery, and there is central vein which is present towards the center. So how is the blood is flowing through? This is the portal venule is moving the blood from the periphery towards the center along this tubular channel which we said is sinusoids, and it is reaching the central vein. Similarly, the blood which is present in the hepatic arteriole is moving from the periphery towards the center, again using the same channel, the same sinusoidal channel, towards the central vein. So here the blood that is being received is a mixed blood received from the portal venule which is rich in nutrients, and the blood that is coming from the hepatic arteriole that is rich in oxygen. So mixing of blood is occurring at the level of sinusoids. Here it is being mixed. Once the blood is present in the sinusoid and we say that sinusoidal lining is fenestrated in nature, so that means some amount of the blood or the plasma will move into these space of this, which will allow the nutrients to be utilized by the hepatocytes. The nutrients which are able to diffuse as such, mainly the gases, for example oxygen, will be taken up by the hepatocytes, and carbon dioxide will be released into this space, which will travel back to the sinusoidal lumen. Similarly, we have other macromolecules which are coming to this space. They will be taken up by the hepatocytes. For example, glucose, proteins, other metabolites taken up here, metabolized, and then the excretory products will be delivered out through the hepatocytes into the sinusoidal lumen. So this sinusoidal membrane or the endothelial line are very porous in nature, being fenestrated in characteristics. Okay, so the flow that is occurring here is centripetal type of flow. In this flow, the flow is occurring from periphery towards the center, and the flow that is occurring from periphery towards the center is happening in two type of vessels. One is the hepatic arteriole and second is the portal venule. Okay, the another type of flow or the flow that you can see here is the flow that is occurring from the center towards the periphery, and this type of flow is known by the name of centrifugal flow, a flow from center towards the periphery. And the bile duct is bile canaliculi is forming the bile from the hepatocytes. The hepatocytes synthesize the bile, which is then moving from the center through this tunnel, which is separate from the sinusoidal tunnel. It is moving out to the bile ductule, which will then drain into right and left hepatic ducts, and finally moving to gallbladder and then intestine. We talked about the non-hepatocyte cells in the liver. the cells other than hepatocytes. So hepatocytes, as you can see here in the figure, these are the hepatocyte cells, but you can see some other cells also in the figure. For example, you can see the stellate cell, the Kupffer cells, and the endothelial cell. So first, the stellate cells. These cells are stellate cells which are located in the perisinusoidal spaces. They function in storage of vitamin A. These cells are also important because they are responsible for the secretion of fibrous material in case they are stimulated by cytokines. So when cirrhosis happen, then these cells are the cells which are responsible for the fibrosis that is happening in the cirrhosis. Then Kupffer cells. Kupffer cells are the resident macrophages. That means they are present within the sinusoidal lumen, and these are phagocytic in nature. These are the cells which are responsible for taking up the microorganism or the debris from the circulation, the blood that is coming to the sinusoids. So these are the Kupffer cells. The third type of cells we had already talked about are the sinusoidal endothelial cells, which are lining the endothelium of the sinusoid. These cells are fenestrated, or they have pores in them, so they allow the passage of the macromolecules from the sinusoid into the space of Deseth, where it can be taken up by the hepatocytes for the nutrition purpose. Properties of liver. 80% of the liver can be removed without the retention of bile salt and bile pigments, and this is possible when the remaining healthy part of the liver, that is 20%, is contributing to the processing of the bile salt and bile pigments. Therefore, these are not retained within the liver. Similarly, when 90% of the bile ducts are ligated, bile secretion tends to remain the normal. Another important property is that if liver damage occurs, 3/4 of the liver is gone, or you donate the liver only with only 1/4 of the liver remaining, then what do you think will happen to this type of liver? There will be regeneration of the 3/4 of the liver or the remaining liver. This occurs within a period of 6 to 8 weeks. And why this happen is because the liver have high rate of mitosis, so it will help in the regeneration of the liver. The functions of the liver. What are the functions of the liver? We know that liver is responsible for the storage of energy. The blood that is coming from the splanchnic circulation, we said, is rich in nutrients. So any excess form of the nutrient which are present, for example glucose, will be converted into glycogen. So it can store energy. Second, it can also store iron, vitamins and minerals which are presented to the liver. So it can utilize those nutrients and those products for the manufacturing of protein and clotting factors, for the production of blood, and for the production of bile. Beside this, liver is also metabolizing, so it will be producing certain substances which needs to be removed from the liver. So excretion is also a function of the liver, in which it removes the bile, cholesterol, urea, or any other product which is formed in excess or is present in the splanchnic circulation, but it is not useful for the body. So most important function of the liver is detoxification of the chemicals that is exclusively present for the liver. So if we want to summarize the function of the liver, we can say the functions are metabolic, synthetic, storage, excretory, and other miscellaneous function, which we will be studying in detail in the next slides. The most important function of the liver is the metabolic function, and amongst this the most important is the carbohydrate metabolism. The liver function as a glucose buffer for the carbohydrate metabolism. So what do we mean by this glucose buffer? Is that liver prevents the increase or decrease in the blood glucose level and helps to maintain it within normal physiological range, or it acts as a glucose thermostat, the buffer for the glucose. So how will it be able to do this function? The most important reason for liver being as a glucose buffer is that it is receiving the nutrients from the splanchnic circulation. So whenever we have a diet that is rich in glucose, that nutrients upon reaching the liver will be converted into glycogen. Because they are excess, they will be converted and stored in the form of glycogen by the process of glycogenesis. Okay, and whenever there is a body condition in which we take a diet that is low in carbohydrates, or in starvation condition when the body is deprived of glucose, then this stored glycogen will be lysed and converted into glucose, which can be used as a source of energy. And also it can also convert some other amino acids form into glucose, which can be again used for the source of energy, and this process is known by the name of gluconeogenesis. Okay, so liver is has an important metabolic role. Beside this, liver is also a main site for the alcohol metabolism because it contains an enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase. The interconversion of three monosaccharides, that is glucose, galactose and fructose, also occurs in liver. Now coming to the other type of metabolism is the metabolism of the protein. Why is it important in the liver? Because the protein turnover, that means breakdown and the resynthesis of the protein, is occurring 50% in liver. So liver plays an important role in the protein synthesis. We know that we have presence of the amino acids with an amine group. What happens in the liver is deamination of this amino acid. And why this is essential? Because it helps to convert into carbohydrates and fats. So when we want the proteins to be converted into energy source, we require this deamination process. The second is the synthesis of urea. Ammonia is a toxic gas and that needs to be converted into urea. This urea is converted, finally secreted out from the kidney. Liver being the important site for the urea formation. Next, we also know that liver is also responsible for formation of certain other proteins, and the proteins you can think of which are essential are transport proteins. So among transport proteins, we also have plasma proteins, and two important plasma proteins are albumin and globulin. So liver is involved in the synthesis of these plasma proteins, albumin, globulin, which help in transportations of various substances, predominantly albumin. It is also responsible for the synthesis of immunoglobulins, and these immunoglobulins are responsible for the mechanism of immunity. So liver is performing important role in carbohydrate metabolism. We are done with protein metabolism. The another important metabolism where the liver plays a role in degradation and synthesis is fat metabolism. So first coming to the degradation or the catabolic metabolism of fat, we know that liver is a source of energy and it is broken down by the process of beta oxidation, which oxidizes the fatty acid into acetoacetic acid, which occurs in mitochondria to convert it into the form of energy. Okay, then liver also have an important role in synthesis. This synthesis occurs of cholesterol and the phospholipid part, which is occurring in the liver. Cholesterol being synthesized from the unused free fatty acids. Then we have synthesis of lipoprotein. The two important lipoprotein are VLDL and HDL. So VLDL, as we see, very low density lipoprotein are required for the transport of triglyceride, fatty acid and cholesterol from the liver. Because they are synthesized in the liver or present in excess in the liver, they need to be transported from the liver to the first the adipocyte. They'll be transported there, and adipocyte help in the storage part. Secondly, it is transported to the cells, and cells will use this as an energy source. So there is transportation of these triglyceride, fat and cholesterol to the cells for energy and to the adipocytes for the storage purpose. The another lipoprotein is the HDL, or high density lipoprotein, which is involved in the transport of cholesterol. You might have heard about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. So this is the good cholesterol which is helping in transportation of cholesterol. And if this transport is affected, then this cholesterol will start accumulating within the liver and result in fatty liver and other condition. And this VLDL is another form of the transport lipoprotein. Already learned about the Kupffer cells. Kupffer cells are the modified macrophages, and they are also called as stellate reticoendothelial cells. These cells are the modified macrophages, as you can see here. They are responsible for the process of phagocytosis. So phagocytosis, they will phagocytose the dead cells. They will destroy the old red and white cell, which are coming where from? They are coming from the circulation and also from the spleen. They also destroy the bacteria, and this bacteria is coming from the splanchnic circulation or the portal blood, the microorganisms which are brought from the intestine. They are successful in removing approximately 99% of the bacteria which is coming from the portal blood. So Kupffer cells are performing this action with the help of certain cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and they help to modulate the hepatocyte function. So Kupffer cells are the protective cells which are present inside the liver. So liver is performing the function of protection or the protective function. We have just studied that Kupffer cells are efficiently removing bacteria and foreign bodies from the portal circulation. This is the blood cleansing action of the liver. Beside this, liver biochemical detoxification action of the liver is also there. So detoxification occurs primarily in the liver. And what are the substances which are detoxified? The most important of them is the ammonium, which is converted into urea. So what is the source of this is ammonia. Ammonia, why it needs to be detoxified is this ammonia is freely permeable across the blood-brain barrier, and when it will reach the brain, it is toxic to the brain. It is toxic. Why? Because it inhibits the neurotransmitter GABA. GABA is a inhibitory neurotransmitter, and when it will be decreased, what will happen? Increase excitability of the neurons. This excitability is toxic to the brain. So we need to convert this ammonia form or the circulating ammonium into urea. And this urea can then be excreted out in the urine. So as we can see in this diagram, the ammonium coming from the circulation goes into the liver. It is metabolized in the liver. It is converted into urea. Ammonium is taken up by the hepatocytes in the mitochondria, where it is converted through a series of reaction into by urea cycle into urea. Urea will then diffuse back through the sinusoidal circulation and again get excreted out through the systemic circulation into the kidney. So this is the excretory pattern. Some amount of this will also travel to the intestine, and this will then be excreted out through the feces part. So the detoxification is resulting. Beside this, it is also detoxifying certain exogenous dyes and chemicals into the urine and into the intestine. So ammonia is critically handled by the liver since it is toxic to the CNS tissues. Now coming up to the other functions of the liver. The function that begins early in the fetal life is erythropoiesis, or the production of red blood cells. Second It is also responsible for the storage of certain vitamins, fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, K, and the storage of vitamin B12. I have also written that it is responsible for the iron buffer system. What do you mean by this iron buffer system? That beside hemoglobin or the blood being the predominant source of iron, the iron is stored in the liver in the form of ferritin. So apoferritin and ferritin system of the liver is occurring as a act as a blood iron buffer system. Therefore, it also occurs as a storage medium for the iron. Beside iron, copper is also stored in the liver. The next function we have already discussed, the synthesis of plasma protein, the synthesis of cholesterol, synthesis of urea. Beside this, it is also synthesizing clotting factor 2, 7, 9, 10. They are synthesized in the liver, and vitamin K is also essential for the synthesis part. Enzymes SGOT, SGPT are synthesized in liver, and they are used as an important liver function test while we are determining the physiology and pathology of the liver. Excretion, as we have mentioned earlier, liver removes or excretes drugs, hormones, and other substances. Among drugs, we have sulfonamides and penicillin being excreted into the bile by the liver. The hormones, certain hormones are degraded and conjugated in liver itself, thyroxine and steroidal hormone. Some of them are conjugated in the liver and some of them are excreted out in the liver to prevent any accumulation of the hormone and for the metabolic activity and inactivity of the hormone. Then we have calcium. The major route for excreting calcium from the body is by the secretion into the bile by the liver. Then it will pass into gut and then it will be lost in the feces. So this is important role of the liver in excretion. We also have liver as a reservoir. We know that liver is receiving blood from the hepatic artery. It is receiving blood from the portal circulation or the splanchnic circulation. And it is responsible for the storage of 650 ml of the blood. So this blood is acting as a reservoir, and whenever the body will require the blood, for example, in cases of shock, it can be utilized in that way. It is also responsible for the thermoregulation and help in maintenance of the body temperature, and it produces large amount of heat because it has stores of energy in it. Okay. Now coming to the applied part of liver physiology. Applied means when the liver is diseased. The first disease we are studying is hepatitis. Hepatitis refers to the inflammatory condition of the liver. This hepatitis is caused by hepatitis virus. It can be A, B, C, D or E. Hepatitis A is caused by the hepatitis A, virus A, which spreads through the fecal-oral route, and hepatitis B, the transmission is through blood. So you must have also been vaccinated against this hepatitis B. So what are the features which are present in these patients? Anorexia, fever, nausea, vomiting, and the most important being jaundice. And you know why it is jaundice? Because liver is concerned with the synthesis of bile. So whenever there is decrease in the functioning of the liver, there will be accumulation of the bile and resulting in jaundice. Liver inflammation will result in pain and dragging sensation which is present over the liver. So liver will be enlarged and discomfort will be seen in the upper abdomen. So investigation, blood tests can be there from where we will know that the patient is suffering from the liver disease. You know the liver function test and exclusive enzyme SGOT, SGPT, plasma proteins and other clotting factors which are synthesized in the liver will be affected, which you know by the liver function test. Then ultrasound can be done in which enlarged liver can be seen. Specific antibody testing can be there for these type of hepatitis. then we can have a diagnosis of hepatitis, then treatment is there. The treatment of hepatitis is resolution of inflammation, that is through dietary management mainly. A diet which is low in carbohydrate, strict bed rest, and ingestion of the high carbohydrate diet. Vaccination is also there. For example, hepatitis B vaccine, which prevents the occurrence of hepatitis B, and this treatment is also symptomatic in nature. The patient having the symptom, he will be given treatment accordingly. Now coming to the another form of the disease is cirrhosis, which is chronic, irreversible liver damage with extensive fibrosis leading to structural and functional loss. Irrespective of the cause of the cirrhosis, this is a picture of cirrhosis that we see. There is presence of small nodules over the liver. These nodules, they are made up of fibrous material, and healthy liver is being replaced by this fibrotic nodules. So liver functioning will be affected in cirrhosis. So what are the causes for this cirrhosis? The most important cause remains consumption of alcohol. So alcohol, one. Second, the drugs. Excessive consumption of drugs over a period of time can decrease the functioning of the liver. Third, it can be post-viral. Various infective virus can lead to the cirrhosis of the liver, resulting in irreversible damage to the liver. So when this happens, what are the symptoms which are present? Symptoms pertains to the loss of functioning of the liver tissue, leading to jaundice, edema, portal hypertension. So pathophysiology of the cirrhosis. This slide is showing the signs and symptoms of the patient of cirrhosis: jaundice, hepatomegaly, pedal edema, collection of fluid in the abdomen known as ascites, gynecomastia, spider angioma, and presence of coma and tremors of the hand. These signs and symptoms are occurring because the liver is not functioning normally because of the disease or the chronic irreversible state of the liver functions. So this slide comes as an assessment to you to analyze the signs and the symptom and the causes which are resulting in it. So you have to analyze the pathophysiology of these symptoms and signs as depicted here. And in the end, the answer to these have been given. Now, liver failure is a condition in which there is inadequate functioning of the liver, be it cirrhosis, be it any cancerous condition of the liver. Whenever the functioning of the liver is decreased beyond the requirement of the body, then liver failure will result. All the functions will be disrupted, be it synthetic, metabolic, then excretory functions or other miscellaneous function. So ultimate prognosis will be the liver failure. These are the topics which are important to know, the must know topics and desirable to know topics. Now, this is the answer to that slide that was used as self-assessment for you. I'm hopeful that you have understood the signs and symptoms. So, when there is impairment of the liver function, there occur decrease in the functioning of different functions of the liver. Detoxification is decreased, the hormone metabolism is decreased, amongst it is estrogen metabolism which is decreased, the conjugation of the bilirubin is decreased, albumin is synthesized less, coagulation factors, the synthesis part is being affected. So coming to the first function, we said ammonia is highly permeable to the blood-brain barrier. So when detoxification will not occur, there will be increased ammonia. This will go into the brain, and then it will cross the blood-brain barrier and result in decrease in GABA, increased excitatory activities, resulting in tremors of the hand, which is known by the name of asprexias. And when it is in higher amount, it can also result in coma-like condition. Second is decrease in the estrogen metabolism. We know that it is involved in the conjugation and degradation of the estrogen also. So when this metabolism is decreased, excretion of estrogen is decreased, the increased circulating amount of estrogen will result in gynecomastia, as we can see here in the figure. It will also result in increase in the blood circulation. The increased circulation of blood can be visualized as this spider angioma, because this is resembling a spider and there is increase in the blood circulatory system, and also increase in the blood vessels or supply to the hand, resulting in palmar erythema or the reddish appearance of the palm. Then bilirubin conjugation will be affected. More of unconjugated bilirubin will be there, resulting in jaundice, which is seen as yellowish discoloration of skin and mucous membrane. Then what will happen to the albumin? Again, it will be decreased hypoalbuminemia, resulting in decreased albumin. This will result in disturbance of the forces at the level of capillaries, the Starling forces, and therefore the capillary hydrostatic pressure, capillary osmotic pressure will be affected. More of the hydrostatic pressure, and it won't be balanced by the colloidal osmotic pressure, resulting in edema. And this edema will be visible in the legs by pedal edema, as pedal edema. Then this is bibliography for today's topic. So here we end our today's topic on physiology of liver. If you have any queries, you can WhatsApp me on my personal WhatsApp number tomorrow between 11 to 1 a.m. Thank you so much.